Hey guys, and welcome to a new video. In 3 days, 5 hours, 46 minutes, and 25 seconds, we're gonna go into the Scourge League. And yeah, I'm still hyped, and every single day, every single second, more or less, I'm getting like more and more hyped about. I cannot wait until it's Friday evening until we can finally slay some monsters and get our new goodies, our new loot, and just, yeah, have a great time grinding all this the stuff out. So since it's still a couple days to go, there is every single day GGG reveals more and more things. And tonight, when I was sleeping, we actually got the new update for Path of Building. So now we are able to see the entire new tree, the new mastery system, and so on. And this is something I want to cover today because I think it was like yesterday or 2 days ago. They released, or at least PUEDB released, the list of all the masteries that we now have available for 3.16. So I want to go over them, just talking about a little bit briefly on what things that I think is amazing, as well as how does this system actually work. So basically, as we saw in the trailer, we have now this passive skill masteries. It's actually a very strong but simple tool that we're gonna have in 3.16 to make our characters even more powerful. And I was really excited for these masteries. I wouldn't say I'm disappointed because as I mentioned in, I think it was like last video, where I said like I'm super hyped about the masteries just because there are cluster notables that I wanted to have for my build, but it always costs so much skill points, or so many skill points, to get those going. For example, the brand cluster, I think there was an image over here where it says branch attached to a new enemy each time they activate, no more than 0.3 seconds. This is basically a cluster thing, right? And this is the one thing that makes Penance Brand so enjoyable and so great to play. And I was hoping for more and more of these cluster nodes in the brands, but it turned out there is not too many. There are very, very good things, and in the end, if you go for brand mastery, for example, you would take the brand nodes anyways, because they're gonna have like brand attachment range, or frequency, cast speed, like whatnot. So it's only one extra point to unlock one of these like very, very powerful stats in addition, right? So it's one hard point, as the same way as you just travel through this the skill tree. So as I say again, you get one of the big notables over here, and with that skill, you can then skill the mastery and pick one out of those. That means if you say, yo, Energy Shield Mastery here as an example has like 3 things that I'm really interested. For example, like gain the max mana is extra maximum energy shield, and the regen, and the stun threshold if you're into that. Then you would need to find 3 clusters that have the Energy Shield Mastery, because you can only use one and you cannot stack them, okay? So if we assume that both of them would be Energy Shield Masteries, then you can use, for example, the Stun Threshold for the first time, and on the second this will be grayed out, so you can only pick one of the others. Basically, I can actually showcase how this works in the new Path of Building here. So let's assume we are Cyan, and we have here a Life Mastery. So as you see, a lot of these clusters here do have masteries, but not everything. If I go down here to Duelist, these areas are empty, so not every single cluster do have those. But for some reason here on the sound wheel here, almost everything has a mastery. So in order to unlock them, if you would go down, for example, like a skill tree like that, or you say like, I'm gonna pass out on the Scion, for example, take all resistance, the jewel slot, and go over here to Constitution. So if I have this life node, I cannot get this. As you see, if I want to get this, it will already plan me the way until there. So I get Constitution, and now with one button click here and one hard skill point, I can choose one of the 5 out of the list. So I'm going to take, for example, the 50 life over here. I say assign, and it will actually spend the skill point and actually give me the 50 life on here, and then it shines up, and actually it looks like very cool just visually, right? Now the mastery is unlocked, and now I could go for the next life mastery, which, for example, would be over here, right? So we can just skill down here, and now we're going to see that the 50 life here is missing, and this is exactly how it's going to work. So again, I'm going to say now 2% life regen, but also if I would go and plan to use 10 life masteries, you can only use as many as you can actually pick from the list, right? But this also means that we can have, I would call them like cross masteries. With that means that not every mastery that is related to a certain archetype does require the archetype. For example, if I'm gonna go here to the PEDB list here, I'm gonna link that in the description below so you can see. For example, the Sword Mastery will have 8% chance to gain a Frenzy charge when you hit a unique enemy. Is that sword related? Not really, because if it would be, it would say, for example, here 50% reduced enemy chance to block sword attacks. That only counts for swords, right? Or here, the 120% increased crit strike chance with swords. Does this line here, the chance to gain frenzy charge when you hit a unique enemy, does have with swords? No, it does not, so that means it will still count. I used that one, for example, in my Bleed Bow Gladiator from a couple leagues ago. Remember that we had here the Lionized Fall jewel that converted all the melee stuff here into bow nodes, right? So all of these now have bow modifiers instead of axe modifiers. But we still take cleaving. Even though cleaving is out of the range of the circle, we still used one hard point into that. Even though it affects axes, but there is one very important line which says, bleeding you inflict deal 15% faster, like deals the damage 15% faster. This is like a very, very strong line here, and it will give us like a tremendous amount of bleed DPS, more or less. So even though it's an axe node and I'm wielding a bow, still this line counts and will give me quite a shit ton of damage. As you see over here, it was like almost 1 million damage just from this node, even though I'm using a bow. So that makes me also wonder, can something like a Lionized Fall convert the Axe Mastery into bow modifiers? I don't think that works, but it would be fun. Maybe something to try out for you guys. So the thing is, what I want to say here, not even though there is a Sword Mastery, that means there is still very good traits and skill lines here that I could utilize on other builds. The question is always like, where are they? How much points do they cost? For example, if I'm saying there's a Bleed Bow Gladiator and there is a really nice bleed node on the dagger side here of things, right? Is it worth spending like 15-20 points just to get this one damaging ailments deal damage faster or something? I don't think so. But if there is something like a point over here and is so superior that I'm willing to invest those 3 points, then why not? Good, let's go over quickly or briefly over the passive masteries. So there is like shit tons, and also they have the count here. How many times will this elemental mastery be on the tree? So for elemental mastery, I really like things like all resistance. Even though it's like a minor part and everybody like it's like normal for a character to reach resistance cap, for example, but there is other skills or other builds that have a very hard time. For example, stat stacking builds. Since stats and resistance and all these kind of things, crit, multi, they are all suffixes. So if you have like a stat stacking character, the stat is kind of the most priority on a suffix. So it's gonna be hard to like min-max without harvest crafting to get like a good amount of resistance on that. And for example, my Bone Shatter Juggernaut was specialized in strength stacking and accuracy stacking. So you have to imagine that all my core items, like a ring for example, I want to have strength and accuracy, and I have to be like super lucky to get any resistance on the gear going. So things like the elemental mastery that just gives me all resistance, I think this is like very good, and I'm definitely willing to put one skill point to get 15 all res, for example. We also had this with like the cluster jewels, for example, where we had what was the node called? I'm pretty sure I haven't used any. Yeah, Doriani's Lesson or something, or there was like the Prismatic Heart. It actually gave you some ally damage and resistance or something like that. Super good to get those going. Here as well, the 40% increased effect of non-damaging ailments, super good for like chill, shock, all those kind of things, as well as, for example, a self-chill build, because the increased effect of non-damaging ailments will also affect the chill that we actually get from ourselves, basically, right? So just to think about that. Then on the Sword Mastery, I definitely like the chance to gain Frenzy Charge when you hit a unique enemy. This basically covers up, for example, a Blood Rage. The alternate quality of Blood Rage was like, I don't know, like a couple percent, not a lot, to gain Frenzy Charges when you hit a unique enemy. So this basically is a good substitution. So maybe at the end, I maybe don't even have to use Blood Rage, even though it gives me like a quite amount of attack speed. But as far as I remember, this alternate quality Blood Rage was many exalts because it was so rare and also very, very good, and a lot of people wanted to use that. Things like Impel Chance, always nice to have if to get this 100%. Other than that, I think a lot of these nodes are like generic notes, I would say, like some increased damage, some increased this, like just something we actually have on a skill tree as well overall. But you have to think about if I'm going to make like a dual wield build and I'm using Dervish for the extra damage and block chance, it just one extra. If this would have a mastery, it would only be one extra point to get a really good note out of it, even though it's not like a build changing stat over here, right? X Mastery, enemies you hit are destroyed on kills, super good just because this kills off monster the corpses, you know, so there is no corpse explosion anymore. The porcupines cannot like explode anymore and stuff like that. Bleeding you inflict deals 15% faster. This is definitely something. So maybe at some point, if I would play a bleed bow build, this might be something I could look towards, like the X Mastery, just because of this line. I showed you in a previous example how strong something like 15% bleed faster could actually turn out. This would be actually the perfect example. So if I use this cluster and this is going to be an X Mastery, which I'm like certainly sure, then I will just spam one hard point over here to get here the bleed faster, and on the X Mastery the bleed faster, because it is not X related. This is something I mean with cross masteries, basically. Stuff Mastery, Unholy Might on block, super nice. The recovery is also quite nice because a lot of staff builds go for the block route, because there is a lot of nodes in a tree that also enable you and give you a lot of block chances as well with staffs. Then Mace Mastery is inflicts chill, quite nice. Area of effect, I'm not so sure. I mean, as I said again, there is lots of notes there that might be like super good. Something maybe I'm not even thinking about right now. For example, a minion offense mastery. I don't know if there is like anything that is like insane. I know that accuracy scales a lot better for minions than it does for characters. But overall, you gotta be a minion player to really see the power in all of those things here, right? Good. Enemies that stun hits have Calling Strike. I'm not a big fan of that because you need some very big hits here to stun something like a Cyrus. And on the other hand, in a mapping scenario, yeah, a lot of my hits stun enemies, but I usually one-shot them, so Calling Strike will not have the biggest of effect. It's more like towards bosses where it really shines. Then we have the Shield Mastery with counter attacks, Intimidate for 4 seconds on block while holding a shield. All these nodes, that's like, it's really strong and definitely worth the point, because if you play a shield build and you go for some shield nodes, you're definitely gonna take a look into the Shield Mastery as well, and get something like increased attack damage per armor or evasion on your shield for like SST builds and something like that, as well as the other line here with the crit multiplier per 10 max ES with the hybrid shields that we used last league for the Spectre Shield Thrower Raider that used as evasion energy shield 1 with the Seething Fury Jewel. That's why these characters had such an insane amount of damage, and now with this node as well, it's even more free damage. Bleeding Mastery, dot multi per endurance charge is super nice actually, because endurance charge is always like a defensive thing unless you use like one of these delve rings, right, where you get like special benefits for endurance charges, but usually it's a defensive stat. It gives you physical damage mitigation, all resistance and stuff like that. And now with this node over here, you also get 3 dot multi. I'm not saying that you're gonna hit towards like 10 endurance charges for a gladiator if you go the bleed route, right? But there is definitely ways to build in some easy and cheap endurance charges, and then you get to like 5 or 6, and then probably just add something that enables your endurance charges, and you're gonna be fine and benefiting out of the extra dot multi. Impel Mastery, I cannot really say anything about the Call of Steel thing because I have yet to play Lancing Steel or Shattering Steel and those kind of things. I know there was these bonk builds, right? But I have never played them, so I never used Call of Steel in any of my builds, so I cannot really say much about it, right? A lot of these masteries do have a mana reservation efficiency line. For example, a Dread Banner. The thing though is, do I think Dread Banner is insane, the mana efficiency? Not really. I think Dread Banner has like 10% mana reserve on its base. With 100% efficiency, it's now 5%. So something like 100% increased mana reservation efficiency on something like Hatred would have a lot more effect. It would get the aura from 50 to 25 instead of 10 to 5, right? Then some nice Totem Masteries, Crit Mastery. This is also very cool. +3 level of critical support gems, which is like an empower for crit support gems. But Like the first thing I'm thinking about is increased critical strikes, or we have increased critical damage support gem, but there's definitely other support gems that have the critical gem or the tag of critical, or being a critical support gem. So it's gonna be interesting to see which ones these are, and maybe, you know, there's always like a priority when it comes to support gems. This one gives you the most, then the next one, the next one, the next one, until you get to the point where you see like, okay, my 6th support gem is like half as strong as the one on the top, right? But maybe if you increase the level of a certain crit support gem by 3 levels through the mastery, it's gonna get better, 1 rank higher than something you would usually take. Or if you're unlucky with coloring or corrupted items and you have a blue socket and you don't know what to do, maybe something like this could help you out to actually gain quite a nice profit out of it. The 150% increased critical strike chance against enemies on full life, I definitely see this stat on something like an auto bomber, you know, Herald of Thunder, the first hit that actually should one-shot the enemy to get your chain explosions going. With this one, even easier to achieve. And then a mana mastery, yeah, definitely like a lot of like things based on mana, like obviously it's a mana mastery, but I do see other ascendancy points on there, like the chance to recover 10% mana when you use a skill. This comes from the Trickster ascendancy. Damage taking, recoup this mana, or recover 10% mana over 1 second when you use a guard skill. This is basically Dynamo, which is oh, in this version we didn't even have Dynamo. Maybe on the new one that was... Oh god, do I find it? It was something here. Dynamo, here. Guard skills have 40% increased duration. Wait, there was another one. Wait a second. Where is that now? Is it here? Battle Verse? So in the old version, in the 315, Dynamo actually had exactly this line here, recover 10% mana over 1 second when you use a guard skill. It seems like they've removed this from Dynamo and now make it as a mastery, but hey, the mana mastery is here, so that actually cost me 1 extra skill point because, as I said, this line was there before. Yeah, maybe we actually have to spend more skill points now to get the things that we had before. Life Mastery with a count of 19 masteries throughout the tree. 10% increased maximum life. I think those things are like a no-brainer, right? 2% life regen while you're moving. Something like Righteous Fire or anything else would like definitely benefit. 50 max life, really, really good, because it doesn't sound a lot, right? But you have to imagine that like most of the like Juggernaut, Berserk or something, they sometimes run around with like a 200% increased life, and this quickly turns the 50 life into a lot more. Reduced life cost of skills for like Arrogance, Blood Magic, Exsanguinate, all those kind of things. And here we have also the increased mana efficiency for like Vitality, Clarity. This will have a little bit more impact in my opinion, because Vitality, Clarity, Precision, those are like flat values. It's not like reserves 5% of your mana. It will be reserves a certain amount, like 200 or 300 mana, just to reserve that. So for a normal build that has maybe like 500 or 600 mana above level 90, something like a Vitality 100% mana reservation efficiency will be much more easier to gain accessible for those builds as well. Armor Mastery, while Determination obviously is a 25% increased mana reservation efficiency because it's a 50% aura. Yeah, it's like a lot of notes here. Reduced extra damage from critical strikes is just like very nice to have, and definitely worth the investment for 1 skill point if you go into the Armor Mastery anyways. Good. Then we have increase and reductions to armor also apply to energy shield recharge rate, 20% of their value, which I thought is like insane, but I was actually considering being like faster start of energy shield recharge, which would be a little bit too overpowered. Imagine if your recharge would kick in within like 0.5 seconds without taking damage. You would be almost unkillable. That would be so nice. And yeah, a lot of quality of life things like reduced effect of curses. I see that on multiple sources and on the skill tree. So maybe at some point you're going to have like a lot of reduced effect of curses, maybe even getting curse immune through that. Physical mastery. Here are some buffs to Blade Blast, Blade Fall, Blade Vortex with like Blade Blast or something like that. I never used any of those skills, but this is definitely something that is quite insane, especially the 10 maximum lingering blades that you can have over here. And then was another thing, reduced reflected physical damage taken. So with something like this, and maybe like 1 or 2 items in advance, like influence modifiers, you can actually get now physical reflect immune if you're like, even if you're not a Slayer, right? Because Slayer has those on the on the ascendancy basically. Fire Mastery we already saw, like increased damage per 20 strength. This is definitely comes in handy if you play like a Chieftain strength stacking Brutus Lead Sprinkler, because you get flat damage per strength, and here you get increased fire damage per strength, right? So this is gonna be very, very strong for those kind of builds. I really like the conversion. We are gonna have this on like Fire, Cold, Lightning Masteries, where you can convert 40% into this element, plus having then probably on the tree, but I'm not 100% sure now, just because I saw that there was like a note somewhere here that had the conversion. So here we have 4% Fizz's extra fire, here we have 10%. So yeah, here is the same thing, basically the same scenario. This node here, Magnetic Strikes, did had, I think, a 20% Fizz converted, and the node before also 20%. So with those two, you had the 40%. Now it's like Fizz's extra fire, and with the Fire Mastery, we can now get the conversion. So there is like not too many changes. See, that's what I'm saying. Like I was a little bit disappointed because I was actually thinking that we're gonna have the things that we had before plus the masteries. For example, if I would go Magnetic Strikes and the mastery, I would already sit at like 80% fire conversion, which would make the conversion things a lot easier. But now I realize there's a lot of points actually going that are now into the masteries that we had on the normal nodes before. Well, anyways, Reservation Mastery comes in definitely handy if you want to reserve more and more auras. This is probably the aura stacker mastery, more or less, because of all these things with the increased effect, as well as the increased damage for each aura and herald skill that's affecting you. Brandmaster we already covered. I definitely look into the cluster node here with the Holy Conquest. I think it was Holy Conquest, as well as 2 additional brands, the brand attachment range. So if I'm playing a brand build, there is like so many superior ones, you know. 2 additional brands, insane. Brand attachment range, actually insane for clearing, you know. Other are like, yeah, well, Chen Simple, yeah, you know what, Overwhelm Fizz, a bit of damage, you know, but these nodes here in the Brand Mastery are just like so superior when I compare them, right? Leech Mastery, obviously everything that has to do with leeching. Warcry Mastery, here I really like, in one hand, the debilitate enemies, which is like they do reduce damage, I think 10% less damage, and they're gonna be slowed, but Warcries have a minimum of 10 power, I think is very, very strong. The way Warcries work is the Warcries have to affect multiple like enemies to gain power, like 5 power per enemy, right? So if you would spam your Enduring Cry in your hideout not hitting anything, you're never gonna get an Endurance charge, but if you have this one, you're always gonna generate Endurance charges just because you have 10 power, which is equivalent to hitting actually 2 enemies, which is quite nice. Attribute Mastery, super nice for the attribute stackers, but usually it's not attribute stacking, it's more like stat stacking, like specifically in deck stacking, strength stacking, in stacking, those kind of things. So it's going to be interesting how the other 4 are going to work out. If you want to boost all your attributes to gain like the most out of it, I'm not really seeing that happening. So I think for 1 point increased attributes, totally fine. The rest, I'm not so sure. Block Mastery, maximum amount of block chance, super good, as well as the life gain on block. The other 2 are not too mandatory, but we only have 2 block mastery nodes on the tree, so it's probably gonna get down to taking both of the maximum amount of chance to block attack damage, especially when you're gonna specialize into the versatile combatant, which is the new keystone. Then we have attack mastery, like all good things here, dual wield mastery, all benefits. Fortify mastery is quite nice for the increased fortify duration, and melee hits fortify. That means the way Fortify now works is you're gonna get fortification stacks up to a maximum of 20, and every stack will give you 1% less damage taken from hits. That means with this, every our melee attacks have Fortify, and now it's calculated based on how hard we hit. But this is definitely going to be good. I'm not too worried about the -3 maximum stacks. I don't think that I go for a second Fortify Mastery just to get those 3 back. I would rather take the increased Fortify duration. Link Mastery, cannot say too much to that just because I'm not planning to play any links. Neither do I play minions, nor do I play in groups, so yeah. It's just like defensive layers. Minion defense, cannot say something. 2-hand Mastery, chance to deal triple damage. I mean, yes, please. That's always like super nice. This is actually quite interesting. Increased armor per red socket or main hand weapon, and increased evasion rating per green socket. Maybe we're really gonna see some like armor stackers going back with like replica items, but these are like one-handed. I was just referring to the replica Dream Feather for armor stacking, but there might be other sources here as well. Curse Mastery, also super nice. Resistance Ailment Protection. Here we have Corrupted Blood cannot be inflicted to you. Super good to use early on, maybe later on when you get jewels with Corrupted Blood immunity. Then you can still switch back to like All Res or Reduced Effect of Curses, a chance to avoid being stunned. I think this is like super, super nice. Then we have like Energy Shield Mastery. Everything based around that. Cannot be frozen if Energy Shield Recharge has started recently. Recently is always referring to the last 4 seconds. Stun Threshold. I mean, if you get like over 10,000 yes, maybe 15,000 with the new modifiers, you know, this is actually quite nice just because it doesn't make you stun immune, but very hard to stun, right? Accuracy Mastery Precision has 100% mana reservation efficiency, also super nice. Accuracy rating, if you haven't killed recently, super big stat. This is the one that they actually removed from the last league for the accuracy stackers, because this was like so absurdly strong for stacking this stat for the ballista, for the totems, right? Siege Ballister, but now we have this as a passive mastery. This is just for bossing. For Cyrus, 30% increased accuracy, super nice. Dexterity accuracy bonus grant 3 to accuracy per dexterity, also really nice, so you can really dip into this like maybe dexterity accuracy stacking. Then we have the Wand Mastery, Unnerve. It's like, you have to think about this is just like one freaking skill point to unlock that, because if you're playing a Wand Slinger or something, or an instacker with wands, then you would take these wand nodes anyway. So for one skill point, we now unnerve, for example, or power charge on crit, or even intelligence is added to accuracy with wands. This is like, yo, if you play an instacker and you get like 1500 intelligence or even more, and this turned into accuracy, you will not have any problems hitting one of the kinetic blasts and stuff like that. Then we have the damage over time mastery. I'm a little bit disappointed over here. I was hoping for a lot better modifiers, like less damage take from damage over times. The skill effect duration, I'm not so sure. I mean, this will actually increase the damage that we do, but not really the DPS. And the 10 dot multi, if you've killed recently, yeah, could be a thing. But I was hoping for other stats, like really like dot multi, maybe like some stat scaling with that. But this was like a little bit disappointing. Chaos Mastery. There was something really interesting. First of all, +1 to all Chaos skill gems, but lose 10% of life and ES when you use a Chaos skill. I think you can definitely work your way around that. Chaos.multi per 4 Chaos resistance. This is super nice. I think Catmaster was actually referring to what if you use that with CI. With CI, you have 100% Chaos resistance. But unfortunately, this should not work with CI. But still, if you play something like Divine Flash, and you get up to like 82, 83% chaos resistance for the layer of defense, you can now turn the layer of defense into some sort of offense, which I think is really good, especially like the chaos resistance to make it even easier. Flask Mastery basically has a built-in Pathfinder over here, and the increased effect. Especially think about this one with the Mage Blood build. It's gonna be so insane. Lightning and Lightning Mastery, as I said, with the conversion here. Lightning damage with non-critical strike chance is lucky. This was also from a cluster jewel. Very, very powerful. Then non-projectile chaining lightning skills of +1 chains. That would, in my opinion, be like something like Arc, you know? +1 chain for Arc, just for like 1 skill point. Dude, I love this, you know? Caster Mastery, damage per intelligence can definitely be built into like an instacker. So I see a lot of utility, like cool things for instacking, to be honest. So maybe we have back the instacking meta at some point, right? Then we have extra seals, extra intensity, super good as well. Charge Mastery, can it be ignited while max endurance, chill per frenzy, and shock per power? Like, I think shock will be like the best thing here. Increased charge duration, why would somebody ever take that? Maybe for bossing or so, but even then, I don't know. And increased damage per endurance, frenzy, or power charge is also super nice if you go into like Badge of the Brotherhood builds, you know, with like 10 power, 10 frenzy, maybe even as a Slayer with getting the 10 endurance charges on top of that. Is like 30 plus charges, gives you like 90% increased damage right there. Duration Mastery, this could be nice for like maybe Val builds and other things that you want to like, or maybe Headhunter builds, you know, to just get those buff things on you. Armor and Evasion Mastery, Cold Mastery, basically Fist converted to cold damage. We have this one over here as well, so it should be relatively easy to get all those things going. Curse modifiers. God, the list is endless. Evasion Mastery, Mind Mastery, Bow Mastery. I think, like, to make this, like, cut down over here, I give it a link in the description below on all the other things. Wait, Poison Mastery, this is interesting. Poison you inflict deal 20% faster is insane. Plague Bearer has 20 maximum plague value. This is actually ridiculous. This is like easily empowered towards your Plague Barrier. Poison belts are going to be in such a good spot too. Claw Mastery, Projectile Mastery, projectile damage per 16 dexterity. Man, there's going to be so many cool things. But now it's finally time. Now we have the update to the Path of Building. Now it's time. What League starter am I going to pick? And now I can build the build or rebuild the build from previous versions in the new version, checking out all the masteries that are going to be interesting for the build that I pick, and then get going and start to finish my League starter project that I'm going to release on Friday at the latest part, I think. Alright guys, let me know in the comments below what you think about all these masteries, and did you find your favorite one? Do you think there is like one interaction that is going to outweigh all the others? Then yeah, let me know in the comments below. And yeah guys, thanks for tuning in, thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.